Okay.
You can figure it out. Yeah. Well, I have no idea. I was wondering
I'm sorry? Okay. Okay. Oh, microphone is on. How's that for sound? Good? So bring out the magic of my voice? Yep. Okay. Good morning. We have a few more minutes left in the morning here. But welcome everybody to the next session here. In case you were wondering, we are here at the MIT campus and region local designs for the future session. So if this is not the session you're anticipating, I'll give you a couple seconds to quietly slip out the door and find the session that you are looking for. So thank you to our panelists, our winners, for joining us this morning. We're going to have an opportunity to hear from them both individually, but also very exciting to hear specifically about the projects that they have proposed and developed and submitted, that has been reviewed, has been discussed and selected in this year's Climate CoLab contest. So I'm Steve Lanou. I'm a Deputy Director in MIT's Office of Sustainability. And we had the pleasure of sponsoring the contest, which was looking at opening essentially up the question about what may be scalable, innovative ways that MIT can focus on greenhouse gas reductions, climate mitigation activities on campus, really to complement and kick off what we hope is a broad discussion across campus about finding the ways that MIT can help sort of push the envelope on campus-focused solutions for carbon mitigation. So it was open, obviously, to the MIT community, but as we see here today, also to the larger New England and regional communities to help us get some ideas. And so there was a panel that reviewed the proposals that included MIT sort of engineering staff at MIT, some faculty. And so when I was looking at the proposals this morning, again, it was exciting to sort of see what was being offered to us at MIT and to the communities around us, buildings, rivers, and watersheds, right? Those are three things that we have here at MIT. The first two being our predominant landscape, our buildings and the river. Sometimes we forget that we are on the river. And so I'm excited to see the discussion around sort of stewardship of our river resources as well as our larger sort of watershed resources. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce, and then I will go through the agenda, and we'll take a majority of the time to hear and see the videos that each of the four teams has produced. So why don't we just start off asking each of the four winners essentially to let us know who you're with, what your project is, what country you're from, and we'll just take it from there. So,
I'm Rick Clemenzi. I'm here under the banner of Net Zero Foundation, which is a nonprofit we started to try to take this information we're presenting here to the world. Basically, I've ended up accidentally being an engineer in the geothermal heating and cooling business, and have found that there is a complete solution to eliminate carbon from all buildings, including this campus. And in fact, it is at this point cost-free. And so that's what we're presenting.
Great.
Hello, my name is Christos Drogitis, and I'm the inventor in Lighthouse team from Greece. My team has invented and developed a new method to collect the solar energy in the form of thermal energy we need in our buildings, like the buildings of MIT campus, and this way to replace the fossil fuels we use now.
I'm Julie Wood from Charles River Watershed Association. Our project is Infrastructure for a Livable Future, and we are focused on developing infrastructure that works more in kind with nature. So opposed to our existing infrastructure models of take, make, waste, we're looking at the way nature does it, which is much more cyclical, and trying to bring cyclical, returning the water cycle, the natural water cycle, natural carbon cycle, and natural nutrient cycles into our human infrastructure.
Hello, my name is Sarah Lakuma. I'm here representing the Hudson River Sustainable Shorelines Project. Our purpose is to protect urban coastal communities from flooding and sea level rise that go along with climate change.
Great, thank you very much. We look forward to digging into the details. What struck me with all of your proposals was essentially that you're looking at an integrated solution. I think we've all learned that there is no silver bullet in terms of both what our energy future might entail and our strategies. There is no one solution. So I love that these are integrated, but they're also systems thinking based. It's looking at how one solution is going to affect another solution and how we can essentially couple a number of different technologies, both sort of existing technologies, possibly in new ways or new levels of scalability. So I appreciated that. And I think looking at MIT, one of our charges in terms of our mitigation work is thinking about what solutions we can do and test here that we should be mindful and strategic about thinking about scalability. How can a solution that's either developed or tested here be applied on a broader scale or with other organizations? So another aspect that I liked about these proposals is that they all have an element of scalability and integration to them. So just quickly, so everybody knows what to expect, we're now going to walk you through the 4 videos, one after the other. We'll pause between them, but we'll do our questions at the end of all 4 videos. And after that, we'll have a question and answer session with all of you for you guys to really to ping these folks on some of the key sort of challenges or questions that you have about their projects, the development of their projects, where they see them going. And then critically at the end, we're going to leave about 15 minutes where we'll break out into 4 different areas of the room, each labeled, where you'll have an opportunity to talk to each of the proposal developers and literally have a discussion about what next. Okay, so with that, I will turn it over to Lucas, who is going to be the wizard in front of the curtain, and we are going to hear from our first group, the 100% net zero carbon plan.
July 2016 was the hottest month on record, and no one under 30 has ever lived in a month below the historic average. Science says we must limit global warming to 2 degrees C, and we should limit it to 1.5. This requires major carbon elimination and seems insurmountable. But we stand at the historic inflection point where climate need, technologies, and ample green bond financing are all aligned. The solution can be effectively free. Net zero energy buildings and retrofits are happening, like this innovative 2011 middle school in Texas. With PV on the roof, some small windmills, and a well-engineered geothermal system, this school produces more energy than it uses. The PV did cost a little extra, nothing extra for the geothermal. It's already broken even and now turns a profit. Let's look at technologies involved in a zero carbon conversion. Green bond financing is available for all these upgrades. Heating and cooling in a zero carbon upgrade involves an advanced thermal district. Designed correctly, this upgrade is effectively free, especially over an existing steam heat system. But if designed using old methods, it may never break even. Notice that 20 miles of new pipe? That's what 20 miles of new pipe can do to a campus. It's not a good plan. Advanced thermal can use mostly existing pipe, being far less costly or disruptive. Net zero carbon energy uses on-site PV and solar thermal. Additional clean power comes via the grid. Since PV and wind are highly variable, batteries are required for full utilization. Batteries can be expensive, but scalable flow batteries are becoming economical. There are also many areas of research needed to accelerate net zero carbon. MIT can and should be a global leader in all these areas. Now is the time to act. By acting now, MIT can provide leadership the world needs to solve global warming. Net Zero Foundation has assembled a team of industry-leading experts to help MIT and any institution take this step. Net Zero Foundation invites your support. With leadership and action, the climate challenge can be solved.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we're going to tee up our building cooling and heating with the Lighthouse Group talking about their solar robotic concentrated thermal collectors. Great, thank you. Next up, we've got the Hudson River Sustainable Shorelines Project.
Hudson River Sustainable Shorelines Project aims to develop science-based recommendations for shore zone management to enhance natural benefits while meeting protection needs. This project is even more important in light of climate change and sea level rise. We are a project of the Hudson River National Estuary Research Reserve in Statsburg, New York. Like coastal communities everywhere, the communities along the Hudson River are increasingly vulnerable to a changing climate and the rising sea levels, extreme storms, and intense flooding that come with it. Pictured here is a representation of a local waterfront at today's sea level and then with 4 feet of sea level rise, with the projection for 2080. This is not to is similar to the flooding that wreaked havoc on the community after Hurricane Irene in 2011. Today's flood is tomorrow's high tide. Nearly half of the Hudson River shoreline is armored by structures like bulkheads and rock revetments to protect from battery by tides, ice, storms, and human use. But there is another way to control erosion and reduce the damaging effects of climate change to shorelines. This way uses nature's self-healing, buffering, and growing capacities with engineering know-how to restore shorelines to ecological health. The research reserve has been immersed in collecting information on soft shoreline techniques over the past 10 years through the Sustainable Shorelines Project. We have been able to shift local thinking on shoreline stabilization and have put out research on post-storm performance using our demonstration sites. Our project identifies ways to restore shorelines that have the potential to maintain and enhance important ecological services, provide greater resilience to the physical forces of climate change, increase biodiversity, improve habitat quality, and be cost competitive with traditional approaches along the unique tidal estuary system of the Hudson River. The Sustainable Shorelines Project has a new phase underway to assess the performance of innovative shoreline infrastructure. The purpose of this phase is to encourage land managers, shoreline landowners, and engineers to use the monitoring protocol for long-term study and adaptive management, and to broaden the use of sustainable shorelines to more areas outside of the Hudson River. The creation of the monitoring protocol has already been funded for 3 years. We believe that continuing and expanding the project's reach will cost about $40,000 a year. With this funding, we would not only be able to deepen our knowledge of shoreline performance as sea level rises and storms increase in intensity, but also broaden our outreach to areas in the mid-Atlantic and other shores with similar vulnerability. For more information, please visit the Hudson River Sustainable Shorelines Project webpage.
Terrific. Is that your voice? Yes. I thought it sounded familiar. Nicely done. Okay. Lastly, we have infrastructure for a livable future, Charles River Watershed Association.
Contains nearly 5 times the energy used to treat it, but the vast majority of its renewable carbon-neutral energy source is discarded. Finally, large centralized wastewater plants present a single point of failure in the event of a catastrophic storm. Once again, the Charles and CRWA are leading the way in transformation. CRWA is designing water infrastructure for the 21st century and beyond. Our approach is to design infrastructure that works with or replicates natural water, nutrient, and carbon cycling processes. Working with the natural cycle, not destroying it. Restoring nature to build resilience in a changing climate.
We've been working over the last 6 years on ways of dealing with wastewater that better mimic the way the environment would deal with water. Breaking it up into small units, treating it, generating electric energy, thermal energy, and reclaimed water for use in commercial and industrial applications. To that end, we've designed a series of CORCs, or Community Water and Energy Resource Centers, to look at the financing and economical desirability of our approach. It looks as if it's a great idea, not only for the financial and economic applications, but also for restoring the Charles watershed and its environment. We look forward to working with CoLab to promote our approach and actually build and apply it.
Okay. Great. Thank you all. And I think I'd like to hear another round of applause for everybody collectively for their getting forward this point. Nicely done. Now, I expect sort of all of us and the organizations we represent can see aspects of those solutions being applied in our own spaces, in our own places. And sort of it challenges us to think about the scalability of the projects that we're undertaking, as well as thinking about how we can help sort of move the dial and think outside of the box about applying some of these solutions. So thank you all again. We're going to open up to some questions and answers. And being here at the podium, I get to ask sort of the first question. And I'd be very interested to hear and give you the opportunity to sort of, if there was one sort of important aspect or the most important aspect of your project that you would want all the members of this room and the members who would be seeing your videos, is what would that be? What is the most sort of important takeaway would you want us to have regarding your project? We'll just go through the four of you.
We have a climate solution. I think no one even knows this. I have a conversation with Tom Malone, Professor Malone this morning, and he didn't even know about these technologies we're talking about. You know, I just accidentally landed in this business. It's one of those things that happens, you know, career number 2.5 or 3.5, something like that. And I accidentally landed here. There's a complete solution for buildings and campuses and vehicles out there. And you put it together with that, it's there. Yeah, I've been watching now over the last couple of years, it's going in. This is not a question anymore. And it's past the break-even point. So we're talking free. You know, all you have to do is just have the leadership to make it happen. Add that to what you might have heard in the news going on with people like Musk, Elon Musk and whatnot. He's planning on electrifying the trucking industry. And Tech Review had an article, a month ago or something, about we could convert 90% of the cars to EVs and not change anybody's driving patterns. Put it together. This is a big solution. This is a real inflection point.
Great. Thank you, Rick. Christos.
We are using the sun to produce thermal energy, not electricity. Thermal energy in buildings is 50% of the global energy consumption. And until now, it's not touched by any renewable source. So the need is huge, the market is huge, and the opportunity is huge. And we have a solution that can be profitable, meaning that it has a payback period of less than 5 years. So we think it is time to take action and reduce the fossil fuels we use in a practical and economically feasible way.
Great. Thank you, Christos. Julie.
Thank you. So our project, we looked at a lot of technology. We looked at a lot of modeling, a lot of technical modeling, financial modeling, economic modeling. But I think big picture, the takeaway is we have a lot to learn from nature about how we're even considering a waste product, which really is not something that exists in nature. The way we are building and designing our infrastructure, both energy infrastructure, food production infrastructure, water infrastructure, as well as the way we protect ourselves and design for the future, and looking at green infrastructure solutions.
Thank you. Sarah?
We have at the Sustainable Shorelines Project a collaborative and long-term project, and we have been able to get collaboration from regulators, engineers, landscape architects, and they are learning, and we're all learning together, but we have so much more to learn through monitoring shorelines to see how they work after storms and to use adaptive management to make improvements. So there's a lot to learn, but these sorts of shoreline treatments are cost competitive with your bulkheads that have been holding up the shoreline for hundreds of years but are now causing more problems than solutions. So we feel that the Sustainable Shorelines can create a solution for reducing that storm surge and flooding energy.
Great, thank you. Words that's stuck out to me, including free, sort of profitable, cost competitive. So my question is to all of you is, if many of these technology solutions are in fact free, profitable, superior, cost competitive, why aren't we seeing them being adopted and developed either at a rate that we would like to see or helping invention get to innovation? And so with that in mind, I'm going to ask each of you sort of what is the barrier to each of your projects, keeping that sort of original context in mind?
Well, that's exactly why we came. That's exactly why we came to MIT. Yeah, I mean, I went here, so I can come back and bully this school. It's one thing I can do, you know? And it's like, the thing is though, that I also know that MIT, I got kind of like a minor in management. So I understand how MIT works a little bit. We have a great economics department here and an incredible management department here. And that's the whole. The technology's out there. Engineers know about this stuff. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of people doing things wrong, but that's a separate question. What's wrong with not getting this word out is the economists have not analyzed this. Think about it. You stop paying the oil companies all the drain that goes to that industry. Think about it. It's enormous. Nobody has really put that together and gone, how will this change our society? What's the scale of what we're talking about here? Now, there's some people who are implementing these things. They're learning these lessons. They've stopped this drain. But on a macro level, it's just not being studied. It's not being analyzed. My hope is that MIT will A, get on board on the buildings level. I mean, we could come in here, I can bring people in here as a contract even, you know, and turnkey change this campus and do it as a profit center, you know, if that's what it takes. Maybe we can actually get the school to do it. But can we get the economics department and the management department to really look into this stuff, and how do we drive this solution and accelerate it out there in the marketplace? That's how we solve climate. It's that acceleration. This will happen by itself, but the acceleration will not happen without a big leader like MIT getting out in the lead and showing the real data and the real reporting and the real methodology to achieve it.
Others?
We are working with this solution 10 years now. The biggest barrier was that everybody was thinking that we are working with photovoltaics and electricity. The need for thermal energy in buildings has been neglected and underestimated for many years. But now, big international organizations like the European Renewable Energy Council, MIT itself, or big global industries recognize the need to move to a more sustainable way of heating and cooling their buildings and factories. So the biggest problem was that people didn't understand what we were talking about. Thermal energy has been neglected, and now it's coming to surface.
So on our project, we've definitely faced a bunch of barriers. Two of the main ones I would say are inertia, just this idea that we've done things how we've done them, as well as sunk costs. So I think broadly speaking, there is a recognition that the infrastructure we have today is not environmentally sustainable, nor is it economically or financially sustainable. But exactly charting what that course to the future is hard. One, because change is hard. And then two, specifically something we've dealt with here in Massachusetts and looking at our regional system, we have a lot of sunk costs in our existing water infrastructure. We have the Deer Island wastewater treatment plant. It treats waste from 43 communities. And pretty much 60 cents out of every dollar that those of us locally pay to the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority is going to their debt. So we're essentially borrowing to build these infrastructures that are outlasting their useful life, and we're still paying them back potentially even after they're not functioning or performing the functions that we need. And this is going to be even more pressing in a changing climate. So that's why we need to shift to a more adaptable strategy. And that's what we see in moving to this distributed network with more of the plug and play technologies as being part of the solution there. But sort of getting over that initial hurdle and for communities to actually have the money to invest up front is definitely a barrier.
I think our barriers are very similar to what Julie was saying. There's this need for change because we continue to do things the way we've always done them, and there's just comfort in say there's always when a hard structure fails, it's much easier to replace it with another hard structure like a bulkhead or a rocky revetment. Even though it's not working, engineers keep rebuilding it that way because that's how it was before. It must just need more rocks or more cement. So we also need that agency trust, engineering trust, and landowner interest from private and public landowners, from parks and also from private landowners. So then there's, with the regulation aspect, it's much easier to get a permit for what's always been built. And I think there's change happening. There's the Army Corps of Engineers is looking into a new permit for living shorelines projects. So there is hope for that in the future, but I would say inertia, as you were saying.
Thank you all. I think many of us are familiar with those barriers that were mentioned and can be common to a number of activities that we have and you have underway, from a need to really look at sort of the organizational change dimension. It's not about the technology, it's about the people. A need for acceleration in what we're doing. Increasing awareness and familiarity around specific technologies to sort of ease their development and implementation, and then really this inertia with our existing systems and the sunk costs associated with them. So please feel free to share any particular insights or strategies or successes that you have had in any of those sort of areas and others with the winners in our breakout session after we finish with our question and answer. So at this point, I'd like to spend a few minutes and have an opportunity to hear from any of you for questions specifically to our panelists. And we do have a mic runner here. So if you could just raise your hand. And before you ask your question, if you'd just be willing to say who you are and what organization you're with, that might be helpful for us. So, this gentleman here.
Hi, I'm Tom Manoff from Integral Scientific Institute. Question I have, I don't really understand the geography too well, but the Hudson seems to be more like an estuary than a river. Is that okay? So we're looking towards sea level rise. It's happening now, and it's somewhere between 2 feet and maybe 6 feet by the end of the century. And so if you're not going to build a lot of rock and cement, the shoreline's going to move higher up, so to speak. Is that kind of what you're talking about, adaptation, is maybe not building so close to the river?
That is included, suggesting that landowners move back, or suggesting that landowners be aware that they may have to move back one day. But ours is, our project is specifically to discuss, to teach these landowners and also engineers that having a natural boundary like a wetland or a riparian area is will hold on to that flood water. Now, with sea level rise, yes, the Hudson goes right into the ocean, so we are tidal all the way up to the Troy Dam, way up north. So sea level rise will affect the Hudson, just as it'll affect other coastal communities. So once say a wetland is drowned, if there's no natural area, natural buffer above that where that wetland once was, if it stops with if a development starts right after that, then that wetland could be drowned. And we're also working with Scenic Hudson to learn more about wetland migration pathways and learning, I think, mapping where wetlands will need to have room to migrate as the sea level rises.
Thank you. Others? Right here. Just a moment while we get the microphone up to you, since the session is recorded.
Hi, I'm Tori McMillan. I'm from Hathaway Brown School in Cleveland, Ohio. And each of you spoke a little bit about the sunk costs and existing infrastructure that you have to interface with that, whatever your initiatives are. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about what that interface looks like with existing infrastructure or sunk cost investments. And that could go to any or all of you.
I have one hit on it. That's why we put a 25-year plan out. Because when you go 25 years, the sunk costs in the stuff that we're working with, much like him, is about thermal, building air conditioning and whatnot. This stuff, there's a sunk cost in these systems, but it only lasts 25 years or so. In most situations, okay? This campus has a little bit of a red herring and they have a central plant. But so long as you time yourself on that cycle, you're avoiding that issue because that money has to be refurbished. You've got to refurbish that equipment on that cycle anyway. To pull it in faster requires accelerating funds.
The solar collectors we propose can be directly connected to the heating system of the MIT campus, and the cost of installation can be paid back in less than 5 years without government subsidy. So the cost, it will be paid back from the fuel saved, and generally will follow this rule of less than 5 years payback.
In our project, we also looked at working with existing infrastructure, at least sort of in phase 1 implementation. So we're essentially looking at mining wastewater from our existing wastewater collection system and looking at that waste as a resource. And then you can bring it in, you can produce electricity from it. Electricity obviously is easy to distribute because we sort of have set up for distributing through net metering programs. We looked at producing thermal energy, again, tying into existing steam or hot water, whatever type of system, depending on what you have. And then we also looked at reclaimed water. Reclaimed water can be a little bit tricky. Here in Massachusetts, we do not have a lot of infrastructure set up, what they typically call like a purple pipe. Because before this year, I think folks didn't really realize water scarcity could hit us and is hitting us. But it's certainly become much more germane this summer since we're in a pretty significant drought here. So these purple pipe systems would potentially be some new infrastructure that would be developed. And again, kind of like folks are saying, planning things out over time and taking advantage of efficiencies. So if there's infrastructure that needs upgrading anyway, how can you improve it at that time and sort of benefit from looking at offsetting some capital costs that would more entrench us in, you know, this unsustainable system that we have, and transitioning those capital investments to a much more sustainable and adaptable system.
There is a lot of permanent infrastructure along the Hudson where shorelines could be an impermanent area. So right now, almost 50% of the Hudson is hardened, like controlled by bulkheads. So there is a barrier in that these might be historical. You can't replace historical bulkhead with wetland, like along New York City's piers. And so, yes, there's just a lot of hardness in the system. It's almost channelized in that way. So replacing that with wetland requires more space, and that is a barrier for us.
Thanks, Sarah. So before we break into our smaller sessions, we've got time for one more question for any or one of our panelists. Anybody? Going? Okay, one more here.
Thanks. Hi. I got a little cold, sorry. My name's Alex. I'm with EnergyX Solutions. And since we're talking about local designs for the future, I'm kind of curious, what role do you see the future playing in local designs? Specifically, what's the role of young people in bringing these solutions to adoption and execution? How do you see that working today?
Oh, okay, for everybody, or anything. Go for it.
Our solutions, it's the general idea, but the products can be different. It's like you can imagine with a car. There are family cars and there are trucks. So we want the people to think about their solar collectors like they are thinking about their cars, to be proud of them, and this way inspire to a more sustainable way of living. We want the people care about the solar collectors and see on their mobiles what they are saving and how they are helping the climate change. So interact with this and even then consume even less.
Go for it. I'll be last.
I think one way we've specifically been thinking about sort of the youth and the next generation is with jobs. So right now in the water and wastewater industry, there is a lack of trained professionals, even just as is. And then if we are looking at different technologies, maybe some of them newer technologies, some of them simple, but some of them complicated, engaging young people in getting interested in those kind of technological solutions and training in technological solutions. And, you know, I would put green infrastructure on that list too. That's also been a big part of our project, looking beyond just the sort of energy and water infrastructure piece, but also bringing it out to the landscape, which is so critical to the health of a river. And how can we change our existing landscape, bringing more greenery in there? So our infrastructure, I hope, and I think it's affirmed by this panel, our infrastructure is going to look different when you know, my kid is looking for a job. So starting to bring that into schools or into universities, and getting these youth trained in what we're going to need them to do, or what really they're going to need to do.
The Hudson River National Estuarine Research Reserve and Sustainable Shorelines always have a AmeriCorps member through the Student Conservation Association, and this year that's me, and it's been going along for 5 years. So I think in that way, our project continuously teaches young people and gives them the possibility for training, and creates awareness, because I'm telling others what my project is, and we're a group of 30 other young people who are all doing other environmental projects along the Hudson. Yes, so in that way, we're engaging youth under 28.
Okay, so yeah.
Can I?
Yep, just
Yeah.
briefly.
Briefly. So the youth absolutely can demand this future. And one of the key elements is something that they spoke about with engineers there too. I got my PE license because I ran into this engineering crowd of established engineers who do the established thing that they've done for 20 years. And they're stuck in the mud completely, and they will never solve this problem because they're not seeing this problem. They're not seeing the solution. So you got to get out there and demand the solution and make sure the right people are at the table to make it happen. And it will happen. And believe it or not, you can open people's minds too, because these guys just unfortunately are stuck in their world and uneducated about what can be done.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing with us your insights and your challenges and the ways that you've been working towards your solutions. I want to now transition into a time that we all can provide you with feedback and input, offer support, expertise on any of the issues or questions that came up. So what we're going to do now is literally, yes, please.
I would like to invite you in demo day because my team participates also in Hub Week. So you can find me at booth number 41 to see a miniature of our solution and discuss more.
Demo day.
Yes.
Okay, and where is that and when? Where's that?
It is this Friday at the
Media Lab?
No, it is down.
Mass General? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so physically, we're going to divide into 4 groups where each of our winners will be present and available, and you can provide them with some input. So if my eyes don't fail me, we've got net zero over here. We've got building, cooling, and heating with a solar robotic concentrator here. And we've got our Hudson River Sustainable Shorelines project here. And last but not least, again, we've got infrastructure for a livable future here against this wall. So we'll take 15 minutes and share your thoughts and support and figure out how you can engage with any of these projects.